Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Twameva Mata Chapita Twameva Twameva bandhuscha sakha Twameva Twameva vedyadravinam Twameva Twameva sarvam mama deva deva Twameva sarvam mama deva deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So last week we started our study of Kenopanishad, and we did the two Shanti mantras and then did the first two mantras. And I was chatting with David before class, and he did what I totally forgot to suggest that we all do, which is in between our sessions, please read Swamiji's commentary. It's some of the best writing you can imagine. He is so clear. So, David, before we march into the third mantra, was there anything in those in the commentary that jumped out at you that you'd want to share?
Nothing that's coming to mind right now, Jim.
All right. But he will stress slightly different things than I. But one of his greatest gifts was his writing. He was a journalist before he started the spiritual life. So and a poet. So his writing is quite beautiful. I highly recommend it. So let's start in on our third mantra. Amini is online this morning. So will you help us out, please?
Sure, Jim. Just let me know if you can't hear me. Is this volume good?
You sound great.
Okay. All right. Perfect. न तत्र चक्षुर गच्छति न वा गच्छन्ति न वा गच्छति न मनो न विद्मो न विजानीमो यतै तदनुशिष्यात् अन्यदेव तद्विदितादतो अविदिताददि इति शुश्रुम पूर्वेषां ये नस्तद्वाचक्षिरे. The eye does not go there, nor speech, nor mind. We do not know that. We do not know how to instruct one about it. It is distinct from the known and above the unknown. We have heard it. So stated the preceptors who taught us that.
So the subject under discussion now is, how do we know the self? Knowledge of this world is known through what we call the triputi, the triple factor. So there's an individual knower, there's a means of knowledge, knowing, and an object of knowledge, known. So I, Jim, through seeing, know the bowl on the table. I, Jim, through hearing, know the sound of the traffic. I, Jim, through smelling, know the fragrance of the incense. We can go through all the 5 outer senses. And there's always that same paradigm. Knower, knowing, know. We also can go to the mind. I, Jim, through the mind means of knowledge, no feelings, judgments, etc. It's the same with buddhi, the intellect. I, Jim, through buddhi, intellect, means of knowledge, no thoughts, no images, etc. Knower, knowing, know. So what this mantra is saying is the self cannot be known through the known means of knowledge, through the triple factor. Why is this important? Because as we enter into the spiritual life, I can't help but know, Blaine, I'm looking for a spiritual experience. I, Jim, am going to have an experience where I know the self. Oh, that's it. I got it. And what this mantra is saying is no. The 5 outer senses do not know the self. The mind does not know the self. The intellect does not know the self. Now, some of us in our youth may have done a psychedelic, LSD, or you modern kids, ecstasy. You think, oh, I merged with everything. I've had an experience of reality. And what the guru would say is, did it have a beginning and an end? Who knew it? I did. It's a mind state. Knower, knowing, and known. That's not it. I was talking with a student several years ago, and she was up hiking in the Himalayas, or talking. I was mistaken. She was talking with a Swami who's out hiking in the Himalayas. And they all looked up at Mount Kailash, and they had all of them a vision of Lord Shiva coming out of the mountain. Oh, Lord Shiva. Did it have a beginning and an end? Was it known by the senses, gross or subtle? That's not it. You can't think it, achintyam. It is a Upadesham, Avyapadesham. Upadesham means to talk about it or teach it. In the end, words fall short. Everything we say about the self falls short. It is not known through the known instruments of perception. So, those of us who may be looking for a spiritual experience, I'm not saying these phenomena don't happen, but they are the Lord's vibhuti, the Lord's glories. They are not the truth. They are not the I had a student say, "Oh, Jim, I'm feeling buzzing in my third eye. Am I getting more awake? Should I pay attention to the buzzing in my third eye? Is it knowable?" I think my crown chakra is opening. I could feel things up there. Energy is going up. Is this knowable? Oh, not this. Oh, I went to this workshop where we cleaned our chakras. Not this. Does that mean that it is unknown? Some could say. There is a whole school of thought called the Shunyavadins. It is a school of Buddhist thought which posit that there is no ultimate reality. There is no truth. Everything is transient, temporary. The self rises and falls. It is transient. Ultimate reality is shunya, void. Is that the truth? Is there just nothing? This mantra may seem to imply that, but not really. What it's saying is ultimate reality is not knowable as an object of cognition. You will never be sitting in meditation and going, "Oh, that's the self." And here's a true story. So I had done 7 years of sadhana in another tradition before I met Swamiji. And I was living in an ashram in the Haight Ashbury, all a bunch of crazy hippie kids. And I was sitting on my bed, it was a little thin cotton mattress, and I was meditating and meditating and meditating. And all of a sudden, there was all this gold white light, and I was just bathed in ecstasy. And so I got on the bus and went out to the other ashram on 26th Avenue to talk to Rama. He was the guy, another student of Swamiji's who was kind of head of the ashrams. And I said, "Rama, I think I've realized the self." He goes, "Oh, really?" He said, "Tell me." He said, well, I was in meditation and I saw this gold white light and I was just bathed in ecstasy. He was a good Vedantin. So he said, so what were you doing before? Just sitting in meditation. He said, who knew it? Well, I did. And when the gold white light and the ecstasy happened, who knew it? Started to get an understanding of this. I was starting to figure the stuff out a little bit. I said, did it pass? Yes. I said, who is it who knows the conversation we're having right now? Drop it. The self is not an experience. With the triple T, the triple factor, knower, knowing, and know. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, he who knows it not. But she who knows it not knows it. And we will get to that second part of what Krishna said. All right, any questions about this?
The metaphor of the eye works well with this one, with this mantra. You can't ever see your eye, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
Exactly. All right, next mantra.
Yadvachanabhyuditam yena vagabhyudhyate tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidamupasate. What speech cannot reveal, but what reveals speech. Know that alone as Brahman, and not this that people worship here.
So, we talked about in the last mantra, are the scholiasts of the void the followers of Sunga, right? But ultimate reality is shunya, void. And in this mantra, our Rishi says, no. It is not that, did he say speech was the first one? I'm having a senior moment. He said,
sorry, Jim. Yeah, it's speech.
Speech. What speech reveals, meaning what I'm talking about. It's not that, but what reveals speech itself. So everybody say together, Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Did you know you said it?
Yeah.
So what we're indicating here is what is Sakshi, the witness of everything. What is the consciousness, Chit, by which the phenomenal world is illumined or known. And just like Santosh said, it is never known as an object, but it is not unknown. For example, no one has seen their own eyes, yet you know you see. No one can taste their own tongue. The tongue is that by which you taste other things. I like to use the example that's like a flashlight. You can't shine the flashlight on its own batteries. No. What is behind all perception, as it were? It's not really behind. And it is not unknown. So we have two kinds of knowledge taking place here. First is the real knowledge. By real, our philosophical definition of reality is that which is never subject to negation. It never not is. That's a double negative. So if it doesn't exist in the beginning, comes into existence, and then goes out of existence, it's not real with a big old capital R. That's our definition of what's real. What's real is real. What's unreal, small, is that which is knowable. So our process here is to withdraw our attention from the knowable and see what remains. We talked about this when we say abandoning everything last week. I am not the body, it's an object of cognition. I'm not the prana, it's an object of cognition. I'm not the feelings, they are objects of cognition. I'm not the thoughts, they're objects of cognition. But in a mind tuned up and made very still, introvert the attentive faculty and see if you can notice the knower that's always been there. It's no thing, but it's not nothing. It shines a subtle being. Chit, your awareness. Ananda. For now, we will translate Ananda as no sorrow reaches there. It is Chidakasha, the space of pure awareness. It is Swayambhu, self-evident. It needs no other instrument to illuminate. Swayam Jyoti, self-effulgent. It is aware of itself, not as an object. How do you know you are you? You don't see, hear, taste, touch, smell, emote, or think yourself. Yet you know you are you. Who sees the phone? You. That's yourself. Now, in a mind made very still, with the attentive faculty turned within, when I get intimations in the subtle intellect, oh yeah, there's nothing there. Technical term for that is called pratyabhignana, recognition. That happens in the subtle intellect. It is not the actual experience of the self. It is the mind's reflection on what is. Let me see if I can give a worldly example. Bring your attentive faculty to the sensation of the waistband of your pants. Can you feel the waistband of your pants on your skin? Now let's use the mind to analyze it. Are your pants too tight? Are they too loose? Or are they just right? This process is called reflection. We don't use that instrument, the mind, to put your pants on in the morning. With your mind, put your pants on. No. Got to hold your pants, put your legs in them. And the feeling is done by your skin. That's a direct experience. But most of the time, you're going around all day, and if your pants fit, you don't even think about it. Isn't that the truth? So I just brought your attention in your mind to the direct experience. Now, the metaphor falls because the waistband of your trousers is still subject object. Another example, rub your hands together. Rub your hands together. Let's reflect on it now. Was it warm or cool? Warm. Was there motion or stasis? Motion. Two things happen. First, direct experience, hand rubbing. The instrument for the direct experience of hand rubbing is hand. But then I reflected on that experience. It was warm, it was not cool. It was motion, it was not stasis. It's another process. Do you see that? So also with the self. Unlike hand rubbing or wearing pants, you're eyeing all the time.
But without the instrument, say after death, there can be no direct experience.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
So I'm using my hands and I'm rubbing it together. I have a direct experience.
Okay.
And I can reflect.
So the instrument is the self itself. The self is its own praman. It's its own means of knowledge. How do you know you are you? That's a different process than thinking, oh, I'm the self. That happens in the mind, but that's not the experience itself. You didn't create yourself when you had that insight. Oh, there's nothing there. Did you? Did it pop into existence? Did it?
No.
Yes?
No.
No. It was there all the time. Did you have a bad moment this week where you got upset or angry or annoyed? You weren't thinking about that. I am Brahman. Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you disappear because of that? Did you?
No.
No. Were you upset?
Yeah.
Did you know you were upset?
Yes.
Yes. I am. I shine. Even in the most miserable of situations. You do not go away. You just have stupid thoughts. That's the only difference. So this pratyabhijnanam is the recognition in the mind. I am Brahman. Listen very carefully. Both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is ever free. The self does not get realized the self is already real. It's already self-evident. I just miss it in my mind. Another example. Way back in the 70s, my friend Deepa has done this, so they must still be around. We used to call them samadhi tanks, and now they call them sensory deprivation tanks. So they're like a coffin. And they're filled with water, salt water, 98.6 degrees. They close the lid, you float in it, and all your senses are deprived. And one of the things that happens is you can hear your own heartbeat. Love, 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 love. Did the silence create the heartbeat? Did it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no?
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear you.
It was
No.
always there.
Always there. But can you hear your heartbeat right now?
No,
Why not?
it's too loud.
What's too loud?
The outside
Anything
noise.
else?
Yes! Yes! So the other sensory data occludes, obscures my ability to recognize what's always there in the body. My heart's beating. Likewise, sensory perception, emotions, thoughts, egoism, memories, etc., occlude from my mind. What's actually the most evident, present reality. I mean, but because in my mind, I do not know what that is. That's called spiritual ignorance, avidya. What I think is I'm my body. That's my problem. So what do we need to do? This is the value of meditation. We spend time slowing down, emptying out, so I can see, have the direct experience. What does that mean? When my mind is still enough that I can begin to see space between my thoughts. And with the mind's eye introverted, notice the knower, what has always been there. But I just missed it. Now, the last part of this mantra says it is not that which you worship here. Now, this is my opinion. I think that there is a more recent layer of Indian religion, which is quite similar, it's Vedic, to Greece and Rome, maybe Persian. It's the Indo-European ideas, where you have gods, which are the various forces of nature or human endeavor, and we attempt to propitiate or influence those gods through ritual, through worship. So the Romans have Jupiter, the Greeks have Zeus, the Indians have Indra. Poseidon is the same god as Varuna. So there are parallels, but there's a layer of spirituality which is older in India, which does not appear in the rest of the Indo-European world. So, for example, when archaeologists have begun to study the Indus Valley civilization, or sometimes called the Harappan civilization, are you familiar with this, Santosh? They found what we call proto-Shivas, which are little terracotta statues. We don't know if it's a god or if it's a yogi, but it's clear that it's a person sitting in a lotus posture meditating. What does that tell us? The Indus Valley civilization is older than the Vedic civilization. They had a writing, but it hasn't been translated yet. We can't decode it. But the images tell us that yoga is older. So in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, the ritual portion, it's about worshiping gods. But the Jnana Kanda, the knowledge portion, says, well, I know you may love God as you understand God. Krishna or Ganesh or Shiva or Jesus. Here the mantra says, it is not that which you worship here. In Gita, Krishna says, in whatever way people worship me, so am I to them. So which is the real God? Vishnu, Shiva. Throughout the Middle East, we've got all sorts of people killing each other. We're not worshiping God the way I think people should worship God. In this country, conservative evangelicals, this is a Christian nation. And what the Upanishad is saying, it is not that you worship here. So, this morning I'm wearing my dhoti and kurta. Last night I was wearing blue jeans and a sweater. In the morning I get up and I wear a bathrobe. Am I the dhoti and the kurta? Am I the jeans and the sweater? Am I the bathrobe? No. That's just what I'm wearing. So also all the forms of God are there because we cannot apprehend, realize real divinity. So this can be very difficult for those of us who've been religious, are attached to ritual. Listen carefully. I am not saying not to do ritual, not to worship God as you understand God. It is very valuable to purify the head and the heart, but it is preparatory. When the heart is full of devotion, and the intellect has become still. This mantra says, now turn the attentive faculty away from things knowable. Who or what is the knower? Would you? I was in meditation and Swamiji appeared to me. Tell him to get lost. Oh, I had a vision of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Say hello to her and then tell her to go. There's a very famous Buddhist proverb. If you meet the Buddha on the path, kill him. That's two meanings. One, if you start having visions of the Buddha, that's not it. Second meaning, if you think you're a Buddha, kill it. It is not knowable, seeable, experienceable as an object of cognition. Yet, it is Swayambhu, self-evident. How do you know you are you? You do not see, hear, taste, touch, smell yourself. Yes, I do. This is me. No! You know your body the way you know a pot in front of you. You were a child, you had a little body. You went through adolescence, the body changed. Now you're an adult, the body has changed. You know the changes in the body. Take a deep breath. You know the breath in the body. There is a subject-object relationship. What about your feelings? Your thoughts? Who are you? And God is not a form. Studying Mandukya with a couple people. And in the second mantra of Mandukya, we have one of the most famous, we call them Mahavakyas, great utterances. I am Atma. What is Brahman? Brahman is the ground of being of the whole universe, which is consciousness itself, Prajnanam Brahma. And in Mandukya it says, I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Now listen carefully. If you and I study the Upanishads because we want to gain knowledge of the self, as if it's out there, as if it's some idea. Oh, I've been reading about the self. I think I'm beginning to understand the self, as if it were physics or geometry or music. No. What do you think about the self? That will do nothing to free us. Let me give you an example. There's a line on your palm, which the palmists call the lifeline. It's the one that starts at the heel of your palm and goes up between the second and third finger. Take a look at your palm. See if you can see your lifeline. Did we create the lifeline? It's always been there. What did we do? We brought our attention to what is. That's what we're doing. You are constant. You are an eternal factor. Now, there's a practice implied here. The practice is throughout the day. Remember to stop. Practice the subject-object discrimination. If it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in time and space, if it has qualities and conditions, and most importantly, if it is knowable as an object of awareness, an object of cognition. That isn't it. It's not bad. Just drop it. Who is the knower? Any thoughts about this?
Yeah, so I'm looking at what you just said, my lifeline. That it's easier to bring your attentive faculty to something that you can distinguish from other things. But when you're trying to focus on something that doesn't have qualities, that's non-different, becomes a lot, I guess, tricky.
It is tricky. It is tricky. And what we need to do in order for it to be clear is slow the mind, still the mind. Now, what holds our ignorance in place is what we call vasana. Vasana are the impressions that are left in the mind as a result of our attachments and identifications. So that's what we need to let go of. If you are practicing Raja Yoga, you're doing asana and pranayama, you can reach a state that we call a Jada Samadhi. And what happens is you get a moment of like blankness, but the ego doesn't go away. I, Jim, see blank. You still got subject object. What is holding that Jimness or that santoshness in place? It is vasana. It's attachment and identification. So I have to keep letting go of that.
It's just another thought that I am this body or mind, right? So it's just a thought that you need to let go.
And it's funny how I can have this cosmic understanding, oh, I am Brahman. But then my sister or my partner says something, how could you have said or done that to me? And we're really identified. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. It's so funny. Sound familiar?
You forget.
Because of spiritual ignorance. So in those moments of disturbance, that's when we need to practice. So there's the practice we do in our meditation seat, where the mind can get quiet enough that the background, the substrate of I becomes more evident. But then there's the practice we do in our daily life, which is equally important. And that's all about vairagya, renunciation. Shankara's definition. That desire, meaning we don't achieve it overnight. To give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses. And identification with any form of self, from the body up to and including the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning I'm a powerful person. All of them.
But you have loved ones, spouses, kids, whoever, family members. It's extremely, so if something happens to them, for example, it's extremely hard to not be identified because that power is so overwhelming.
That is why many of the traditions say it's easier, it's faster if you take sannyas.
But most of us don't have that in our lives, right? That you have to be lucky.
No, you have to make the choice. It's real simple.
It's too late for most of us.
No, it's not.
It's sannyas means
renunciation. Yeah. Live the life of an ascetic. You can be a householder and attain self-realization, but you still have to renounce your attachment. Now, I like to tell this story. Again, the presence or the absence of the objects is not the issue. When I was in the ashram in Mumbai in 1993, so this is where these young brahmacharis and brahmacharinis are there, and everybody had their own little cell. You lived in a cell that was about the dimensions of my bedroom in there. And you had a metal bed with a thin cotton mattress. You had a dresser. You had a little desk table and a chair. And you had a rubber bucket. You had kurta and dhoti. If you were a guy, for the ladies, they had these white saris. You had three. One you washed, one was in the dirty clothes, one you wore. And you lived out of your rubber bucket. Your rubber bucket was that which you used to wash out your room, to wash your clothes, to bathe in. You lived in a rubber bucket. No running water readily available. You had to go to these. So we're living like real renunciates. The guys, our heads are shaved. We've got his little choti in the back. And I can remember so vividly, there was one of the young brahmacharis, and he was upset beyond belief because another brahmachari had used his rubber bucket. No fancy clothes, no car, no cell phones, no house, no artwork. no objects. But he focused all his attachment on a rubber bucket. So you see, the presence and the absence of objects are not the problem. The problem is attach. So it is those attachments and identifications that keep our spiritual ignorance in place. It veils from the mind this direct experience. Then I have the subsequent misapprehension. I think I'm the body. Even for a householder, you have to give up attachment to family, friends, job, possessions, money. We have to take sannyas in this life. Which brings me to a spiritual axiom. If I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the problem. I have the klesha, the affliction. I have the dosha, the mental defect. Meaning I have attachment, expectation, or identification. That does not mean they're right and I'm wrong. So, for example, if some fellow in China screams at his wife, does that upset you? No. Why not?
I'm not identified with whatever they're.
You got it. But if there's a fight in your family, oh, I need to get in there and fix it. I'm responsible. Oh, so I guess you think God's an underachiever. He needs your help. Oh, nonsense. Here's another mental exercise. Who here has issues in the family and they upset you and you think you need to do something about it? What if you got hit by a bus today? What would happen to your family? You think you're necessary? So what would you used to do this? You used to say, imagine a bucket of water. Stick your finger in it, and pull it out, and watch what happens to the water. Are you necessary? Graveyards are filled with indispensable people. This goes on.
There's still duties that everyone has.
Who's doing the duties? Drop it. It's the body that's doing the duties. I'm not saying do not perform them. Do not get attached. Do not get identified. Do not make duty another God you worship. Were you going to say something, Kristen?
No, you clarified. So I'm good.
It's attachment that's the issue. You can't run away from the world. Nobody can. It's easier for those of us who are called to a life of renunciation. But that's not the karma of everybody. but the renunciation is a precondition. Shankara is very fond of the metaphor of the snake and the rope. There's the snake, the rope on the ground, and I misapprehend it. I think it's a snake. Now, as long as I keep smooching that snake, I'm never going to see the rope. I have to examine ruthlessly what is there. So this is an even deeper meaning. It is not that which you worship here. Family, money, position, jobs. It's not any of that. So, Amini, would you read the English one more time? We've only got a few more minutes.
Read the English of the previous one, Jim?
The one we are working on. Yes, I want to make sure I got all the pieces of it.
Okay, 1 second. I already turned forward.
Third mantra.
Fourth mantra, right?
Fourth. Okay, I lied.
Yeah. What speech cannot reveal, but what reveals speech? Know that alone as Brahman, and not this that people worship here.
Yeah. So when we say speech, it also means seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, all of it. It is not anything in the world that is knowable. It is not any of the objects of desire, people, places, things, and conditions. It is that which illumines the world, name, and form. What's the eternal factor? What is the witnessing consciousness? It's always there. Abhyasa Vairagya Cha, what Patanjali says in Yoga Sutra. Practice, abhyasa, Vairagya, let it go, let it go, let it go. Not getting rid of the objects. He's not saying go live in a cave. He's saying give up my attachment and my identification. All right, we'll quit here. So we start with a mantra 5 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.